Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Definitely. Always excited to jump into some new research.
Well, today we're doing something a little different.
Oh,
We're tuning into the secret language of squirrels.
squirrels. Fascinating.
Yeah, specifically their alarm calls.
Right.
We've got a study here all about two ground squirrel species,
Cool. Which ones?
the European ground squirrel
Ah,
and the Taurus ground squirrel.
interesting choices. I'm already curious to see how their calls differ.
I know, right? Okay, so before we get to the actual chatter,
Right.
let's set the scene a little bit.
Sounds good.
So, the European ground squirrel,
Mm-hmm.
Spermophilus citellus, if you want to get all scientific about it.
Of course.
These guys love hanging out in the steppes, those wide open grassy areas.
Ah, got it. Perfect for a little squirrel playground.
Exactly. Now, the Taurus ground squirrel,
Okay.
Spermophilus taurensis,
Mm-hmm.
they prefer a different kind of scene.
More of a rugged type.
Yeah, more mountainous, rocky terrain, sparser vegetation.
Interesting. Different habitats, different squirrels. I wonder if that'll affect their alarm calls.
And that's what we're going to find out.
I can't wait.
And get this, the Taurus ground squirrel, they were only described as a separate species back in 2007.
Wow, really? That recent?
Yeah,
So there's still a lot we don't know about them.
exactly. But one thing we do know is that both of these species, they rely heavily on alarm calls.
Oh, absolutely. Crucial for survival.
The big time.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine your little ground squirrel just munching on some seeds, minding your own business,
Right.
and suddenly a predator appears.
Yikes.
You got to warn your buddies somehow, right?
Definitely. Gotta let everyone know there's danger around.
Exactly. And that's where these alarm calls come in. It's like their way of yelling, danger, danger.
Yeah. A squirrel SOS signal.
Precisely. And the study we're looking at today, it found that both of these species have alarm calls that are tonal,
Okay.
often made up of two parts.
Two parts.
Yeah, like a danger alert system.
Interesting. So what's the difference between the two parts?
Well, the second part, it actually changes pitch. Scientists call it frequency modulation.
Frequency modulation. Okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to break that down for me.
Think of it like a built-in GPS for the other squirrels.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It helps them figure out exactly where that danger is coming from.
So the changing pitch gives them directional information.
That's the idea.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, I've always wondered how animals communicate so effectively.
I know, it's incredible.
Mm.
And speaking of communication, for this deep dive, we actually get to hear these alarm calls ourselves.
Wait, really? We have audio?
The study included some examples,
Oh, cool.
so we can actually listen to what these squirrel SOS signals sound like.
I'm ready. Hit me with those squirrel sounds.
Okay, first up, the European ground squirrel.
Arr,
Let's see.
I'm listening.
Here we go.
Wow, that was high-pitched. Like a tiny little whistle.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, now for the Taurus ground squirrel.
Okay, let's hear it.
See if you can hear the difference.
Definitely deeper.
You hear that?
Almost a growl. You can really tell them apart just by listening.
I know, right? So different.
Fascinating how those sounds reflect their different environments.
Yeah, and that difference in pitch, that's actually one of the key findings in this study.
Really?
It's all about something called the fundamental frequency.
Okay, fundamental frequency. Sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, but it's basically just the main pitch of the sound.
Ah, okay, I get it.
Think of it like the note a musical instrument plays.
Right, like a middle C on a piano has its own fundamental frequency.
Exactly. That's what makes it distinct. And what the researchers found was that the loudest part of the squirrel's call, it matches this fundamental frequency.
Interesting.
Now, this is kind of cool because some older studies, they thought the loudest part matched something called the first harmonic.
The first harmonic, instead of the fundamental frequency.
Yeah.
So what are those harmonics then? Like an echo of the main sound?
Not quite an echo. Think of them more like extra notes that ring out along with the main sound, but higher in pitch.
Oh, okay, so like overtones.
Exactly. And it seems like the equipment used in those earlier studies, it might have been picking up on these extra notes instead of the main pitch.
Interesting. So we're getting a much clearer picture now with this new research.
Exactly. And get this, the researchers were able to tell the difference between the two species with 100% accuracy,
100%. Wow.
just by analyzing the specific features of their calls.
That's incredible, like having a squirrel decoder ring.
Right. So cool.
So what exactly makes their calls so different? You mentioned they live in different habitats. Could that be a factor?
It definitely could. We know that lower sounds tend to travel farther,
Right.
especially in denser environments like forests.
Makes sense. So the Taurus ground squirrel, with its lower-pitched calls, could be better suited for communicating in those rocky, more vegetated areas.
Exactly. Like their calls have adapted to be heard more clearly in their specific environment.
That's a fascinating thought.
It's a bit like when you're at a concert and you can hear that bass drum from far away,
Right.
even when the higher-pitched instruments get lost in the mix.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. The denser vegetation in the Taurus ground squirrel's habitat could be acting like a filter, favoring those lower frequencies.
I like that, a natural sound filter.
But are there any other possible explanations?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Could it be something to do with their size?
Oh, interesting point.
Like how bigger musical instruments tend to have deeper sounds,
Yeah, absolutely. Body size can definitely influence call frequency.
and maybe the shape of their vocal tracts, too.
Right. The anatomy of their vocal cords could play a role as well.
So maybe it's a combination of factors.
Yeah, that's likely. A bit of nature and a bit of nurture shaping their unique voices.
It makes me realize just how complex animal communication can be.
It really is, even in creatures we might think of as simple, like squirrels.
Absolutely. And we're just scratching the surface here.
There's still so much more to discover about why these squirrels have such distinct calls.
Exactly. And that's what makes this research so exciting. It opens up a whole new world of questions, like what other factors could be influencing their communication styles?
Well, we've talked about habitat and body size, but there's a whole world of possibilities beyond that. What about the types of predators they have to deal with?
Oh, that makes sense. A predator lurking on the ground might require a different alarm call than one swooping in from the sky. Tell me more.
Well, think about the European ground squirrel out in the open. They're probably watching out for fast-moving aerial predators like hawks.
Yeah, makes sense.
Their high-pitched calls might be more effective at cutting through the air and reaching their buddies quickly.
Right. It's like a piercing alarm. Hard to ignore even with the wind whipping around.
Exactly. But now imagine the Taurus ground squirrel in those Rocky Mountains. They're more likely to encounter terrestrial predators like foxes or snakes.
Okay, yeah. Different threats.
So a lower frequency call that travels farther along the ground, maybe even around obstacles, could be more advantageous.
So it's like different predators, different alarm call strategies.
Precisely. It's almost like an acoustic arms race between predator and prey, each one evolving to outsmart the other.
An acoustic arms race. I like that. And what about their social structure? Could that play a role too?
Absolutely. Ground squirrels are very social creatures, and their social dynamics could definitely influence how their alarm calls evolve.
How so?
Well, think about it. If a species is highly social, living in large, close-knit colonies, they might need more complex alarm calls to convey specific information.
Like a code that says, hey, there's a hawk over by that big rock, versus just a general danger call.
Exactly. They might even have different calls to distinguish between different levels of threat, like a mildly concerned chirp versus a run-for-your-life screech.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really is. Their calls could be like a little window into their social intelligence and the complexity of their lives.
It's amazing. We tend to think of squirrels as, kind of simple creatures.
Right. But there's so much more going on beneath the surface.
This is blowing my mind. I never realized how much thought could go into a simple squirrel alarm call.
And that's what's so exciting about scientific research. It reveals these hidden layers of complexity in the natural world, even in creatures we think we know.
Well, this study did a great job of identifying those key differences in the calls of these two species. But there's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. We've only just begun to unravel the mysteries of squirrel communication.
It's like a detective story, but with squirrels and sound waves. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
I couldn't agree more. There's a whole world of acoustic information out there just waiting to be decoded.
Exactly. Makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the sounds of nature.
It's a thrilling thought, isn't it? From the songs of whales to the buzz of insects, every sound has a story to tell.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to go out and listen a little more closely to the world around me.
Me too. Who knows what amazing things we might discover?
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of squirrel communication. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. And this research, it's not just about satisfying our curiosity about squirrels and their secret chatter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this stuff actually has real-world implications for conservation efforts.
Conservation. Okay, I'm all ears. How does understanding squirrel calls help with protecting them?
Well, think about it. Being able to accurately identify different species based on their calls, that's a game changer for monitoring populations.
Oh, okay.
Especially in areas where it's tough to actually see them.
Oh, I see. So instead of trying to, like, catch a glimpse of a shy squirrel,
Right.
researchers could use their calls as a sort of auditory census?
Exactly. Imagine setting up recording devices out in the field.
Oh, yeah.
You could gather data on which squirrel species are present, where they're hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
even how many there are, all without disturbing them.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's way less intrusive than trying to, like, trap or tag them.
Right.
And it probably works better in, like, dense forests or rugged terrain where it's hard to see them anyway.
Absolutely. This kind of acoustic monitoring is especially valuable for species that are endangered or have limited ranges,
Ah, okay.
like our friend the Taurus ground squirrel.
Right. So their unique alarm calls, they're not just about personal survival.
Mm-hmm.
They could be a lifeline for their entire species.
Precisely. This study really highlights how important it is to understand biodiversity at all levels,
Yeah.
even down to the subtle differences in animal communication.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the
Mm.
sounds of nature,
Right.
just waiting to be decoded.
It's a thrilling thought, isn't it?
It is.
There's a whole world of acoustic information out there,
Mhm.
from the songs of whales to the buzz of insects,
Yeah,
that can tell us so much about the creatures we share this planet with.
absolutely. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to go out and listen a little more closely to the world around me.
Me too.
Who knows what amazing things we might discover.
You never know. Maybe we'll even crack the code of another animal language.
Right. Okay, well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of squirrel communication.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been fun. It's really amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as a squirrel's alarm call can actually hold so much information.
It is pretty incredible, isn't it?
Not just about danger, but about their habitat, their predators, even their social lives.
Yeah. It really highlights how interconnected everything is in nature.
Right.
Every sound, every behavior has a purpose and a story behind it.
It makes you realize that we humans are just one small part of this incredible web of life,
Yeah.
and that we have a responsibility to protect it.
Absolutely. And understanding animal communication, it can play such a crucial role in that.
Yeah.
The more we know about how other species interact and communicate, the better equipped we are to conserve them.
So next time we hear a squirrel chattering away,
Right?
we'll know there's a lot more going on than meets the eye,
Yeah.
or rather the ear.
Exactly. It might just be a reminder to slow down, listen closely, and appreciate the amazing complexity of the natural world all around us.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of squirrel communication.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun.